At first glance, it looks like chaos, a sea of faces packed together, shoulder to shoulder. But these men aren't trapped, they're finally free. This is the RMS Queen Mary in 1945, carrying thousands of American soldiers home after years of war. Imagine the emotions on that deck. The laughter, the tears, the relief of knowing they survived the deadliest conflict in history. Each man returned with memories he would carry forever, stories he might never share, and dreams of a life waiting across the ocean. This photo isn't just history. It's the sound of a world exhaling, the moment freedom came home. Imagine being in this room. You've spent your life believing Newton's laws ruled the world. Solid, unshakable. And then this man walks in. His name? Albert Einstein. He's about to tell you everything you know is wrong. As he writes equations no one understands, the crowd leans forward. Some are thrilled, others furious. Because this isn't just math, it's a revolution. A theory so bold it says time itself can stretch, space can twist, and the speed of light is the ultimate law. Most people left stunned, but a few? They realized they'd just witnessed history bend in real time. It looks like an art class, but what you're seeing is the birth of magic. The year is 1942. These men are Disney artists, and the deer in the center? That's the heart of a dream called Bambi. Every line they draw, every detail they capture, will bring life to a story that generations will never forget. This wasn't just animation, it was obsession with perfection. They studied how a deer breathed, how it blinked, even how it walked, because Walt Disney believed in one thing. If you want people to feel it, it has to feel real. And from this quiet room came one of the most iconic films in history. Think Popeye was just a cartoon? Think again. This man, Frank Fiegel, was a real person. A Polish immigrant, a former sailor, known in his town for his scrappy attitude, his love for pipe smoking, and yes, that iconic grin. In the 1930s, he inspired the creation of Popeye the Sailor, one of the most famous cartoon characters of all time. But here's the twist. Frank never made a fortune, never became a celebrity. While Popeye conquered the world, the real man stayed in the shadows. Yet without him, spinach might never have become legendary. At first glance, this looks like a glitch in reality, a building covered in hundreds of identical coats. But this isn't an art installation. It's a marketing stunt from 1936 in Copenhagen, Denmark. A clothing store decided the best way to grab attention was to turn its entire building into a giant display. No digital ads, no flashy screens, just pure creativity that made everyone on the street stop and stare. Nearly a century later, one thing hasn't changed. The boldest ideas are the ones people never forget. In 1955, Times Square was already the center of attention, but nothing prepared New Yorkers for this. A giant trash can in the middle of the city's most iconic intersection. Was it art? A prank? No. It was a bold campaign to remind people to keep the streets clean. Decades before viral marketing and hashtags, this oversized garbage can become a statement. Simple, powerful, impossible to ignore. Sometimes, the biggest ideas are literally the biggest. At first glance, this looks like a fashion show, but look closer. The year is 1964, and what you're seeing is a bold experiment in the skies. A Scandinavian airline stewardess is examining a proposed new uniform. And yes, it looks more like a Las Vegas showgirl outfit than airline attire. Why? Because the 60s were a time of fierce competition among airlines, each trying to make flying glamorous, luxurious, and unforgettable. This was the jet age, when air travel wasn't just about getting from point A to point B, it was a full-blown experience. Some airlines even considered adding live entertainment on board. This photo captures a moment when the future of aviation flirted with fantasy, a time when style ruled the skies, and the race for passengers meant pushing boundaries in ways that still make us smile today. What you're looking at isn't a building material or a strange sculpture. It's a wine jar, built on a monumental scale. This photo from 1881 shows a container so massive it could hold hundreds of liters of wine. Think about that for a second. In a world without modern machinery, creating something this size required incredible skill and strength. These giant vessels weren't for decoration. They were essential for storing and transporting wine across great distances, keeping it safe for months, even years. Before bottles became the norm, these jars were the backbone of trade, celebrations, and even status. In fact, the bigger the jar, the more wealth and influence it signaled. This isn't just pottery. It's a glimpse into a time when wine was more than a drink. It was culture, power, and pure human ingenuity. This isn't water, it's whiskey, gallons of it, flowing straight into a sewer. The year is 1921, and America is deep in the Prohibition era. Alcohol wasn't just frowned upon, it was illegal. Federal agents and local police were tasked with enforcing the law, and that meant destroying thousands of barrels like this one. For some, it was a moral crusade to save the nation. For others, it was a nightmare that gave rise to speakeasies, secret clubs, and the rise of organized crime. Imagine the tension in the air as this liquid gold hit the pavement, a symbol of defiance, power, and a country torn between law and desire. This single moment captures more than just a crackdown. It marks the birth of an era that would change American culture forever. What you're seeing here is not a parade, and these men aren't ordinary musicians. They're part of the Michelin Band, performing in 1928 to celebrate the launch of the company's very own radio program. Yes, before social media, before TV ads, brands found creative ways to connect with people, and for Michelin, that meant music. Radio was the new frontier, and having a live band dedicated to your brand was a bold marketing move. Imagine tuning in and hearing this orchestra playing under the name of a tire company, blending entertainment and advertising in a way few had seen before. This photo captures more than a performance. It's the moment marketing took center stage, proving that great ideas drive more than cars, they drive culture. Discipline in schools once looked very different from what we know today. This photo, taken in 1905, shows a teacher standing over a student facing punishment for misbehavior. No phones, no detention slips. Discipline was swift, strict, and often public. In an era where authority was unquestioned, education wasn't just about reading and writing. It was about obedience. For many, school felt less like a place of learning and more like a place of control. Yet, behind this image lies a bigger question. Did this approach create better students, or simply more fear? Today, we debate education reform, but over a century ago, this was the standard. One classroom, one teacher, and a lesson no student would dare forget. Before fitness influencers, before gym culture, there was this man, Eugen Sandow. The year is 1893, and he's not just flexing for a photo. He's redefining what strength means. Known as the father of modern bodybuilding, Sandow turned muscles into a spectacle at a time when physical fitness wasn't mainstream. People lined up to see him perform feats of power, lifting weights that seemed impossible, sculpting a body that looked like it belonged to ancient statues. But here's the twist. Sandow didn't just inspire athletes. He sparked a cultural shift. Gyms, fitness magazines, even the concept of working out for aesthetics, all trace back to this man. Over a century later, his influence is everywhere, proof that one person's obsession can shape an entire world. This isn't just a fashion photo, it's a snapshot of an era. The 1950s were a decade obsessed with elegance, and nothing captured that better than the neckline. Off the shoulder, draped satin, bold collars. Every design told a story of sophistication and confidence in a world eager to leave the hardships of war behind. These women weren't just models. They were symbols of a cultural shift. Television was rising. Hollywood glamour ruled the imagination, and fashion houses competed to set the standard for modern beauty. In an age before fast fashion, every detail mattered: the cut, the fabric, the way a dress framed a necklace. Looking at this image today, it's more than style. It's a window into a time when elegance wasn't just worn, it was a way of life. This isn't a royal banquet. It's a dinner at the legendary Hotel Astor in 1904, and it shows just how extravagant high society could be at the dawn of the 20th century. Look at that table, a river of flowers, crystal glasses, silver candlesticks. Every detail designed to impress. This was an era when formal dinners weren't just meals. They were statements of power, wealth, and influence. The Hotel Astor, located in the heart of New York City, became a symbol of elegance, hosting events that defined the Gilded Age lifestyle. Imagine the conversations echoing in that grand hall, business deals sealed over champagne, alliances formed with a single toast. Today, this image feels like a portal to a time when excess wasn't hidden. It was celebrated in the brightest rooms money could build. This man is James Naismith, and without him, one of the world's most popular sports wouldn't exist. The year is 1939, and he's holding the game he created nearly half a century earlier: basketball. Back in 1891, Naismith was a young physical education instructor faced with a challenge: how to keep his students active during harsh New England winters. His solution? A simple game with a soccer ball and 2 peach baskets nailed to a balcony. No one could have imagined that this small idea would grow into a global phenomenon, with millions of players and fans across every continent. Today, basketball is a multi-billion-dollar industry, a cultural force, and an Olympic sport. But it all started with one man, a gym, and an idea that changed the world. This photo takes us back to 1876, to a time when American football was barely recognizable. These men, wearing simple wool uniforms and soft caps, were members of Yale's football team, one of the pioneers of a sport that would become a national obsession. Back then, there were no helmets, no forward passes, and very few rules. It was a brutal game, closer to rugby than modern football, and injuries were common. Yet, for these athletes, it wasn't just a game. It was tradition, pride, and the birth of something bigger than they could imagine. Today, football is a multi-billion-dollar industry with global reach, but it all started with teams like this, posing for photos, unaware they were writing the first chapter of a story that would define American culture. This moment, frozen in time, captures something timeless: a father impressing his little girl with a display of pure strength and balance. The year is 1940. No smartphones, no social media, just a man, 2 wooden stands, and a skill that seems almost superhuman. Look at the child's face, wide-eyed, mouth open in awe, as her dad holds himself perfectly still, upside down, with one hand. Back then, entertainment wasn't bought, it was created. Families shared these moments outdoors, building memories that lasted a lifetime. Today, this photo reminds us that some of the most powerful connections don't come from technology. They come from presence, surprise, and a little bit of magic that only a parent can bring. This image captures the raw intensity of boxing in the 1920s, an era when the sport wasn't just entertainment, it was survival. Gloves were thin, rules were loose, and every punch carried the weight of pride, hunger, and reputation. Look at the crowd. Men in suits, hats tilted forward, eyes locked on the ring. For many, this wasn't just a fight. It was a symbol of grit in a decade defined by roaring optimism and looming uncertainty. Fighters of this era weren't chasing fame or million-dollar contracts. They fought for honor, for a meal, for a name. Today, boxing is a global industry, but back then, under dim lights and in smoky arenas, it was something else entirely: raw, relentless, and unforgettable. This photo takes us back to Mexico in the 1940s, a time when the car was more than transportation. It was a symbol of progress and status. Look closely, a gas station that feels like a social hub, where drivers stop not just to fill their tanks, but to share a conversation. No bright neon signs, no self-service pumps, just attendants in uniform and the steady hum of engines that promised freedom on the open road. The 1940s marked the golden age of the automobile, and in Mexico, these stations were gateways to a modern world. Today, gas stations are fast, impersonal, and everywhere, but this image reminds us of a time when even a simple stop for fuel felt like stepping into the future.